Progress on our 1975 280 SL has been super slow this year, but now that we have finally made up, 3D printed our own glove box and flocked the glove box, I'm going to have a go at putting the interior of this car back together. Before we can do that, we need to address the ECU brackets here. This is the ECU. This lower bracket here is currently just held on by some neodymium magnets. And what we need to do is we need to make up another one of those brackets because that one's completely rusty. Now this is the lower bracket here. As you can see, it's completely rusted, full of holes. We need to make up another one. It's not particularly thick steel, but what I am slightly struggling with is wondering how we're going to create that, if indeed we need to. We may just use thicker steel and see if we can make up the bracket that way, but the angle that this sits is quite important because the angle that is exactly the same as the angle of the front footwell, which leaves the ECU sitting flat. Now it just so happens that the rear clamshell from our parts car there is just about exactly the same angle as this, so I think what we'll do in the first instance is see if we can just cut a section out and see if that's going to be strong enough, because this is pretty thick steel. Now it transpires that this piece here is not actually symmetrical. This is longer than this here, and that's so it follows the contours of the footwell. I've cut this also to be slightly non-symmetrical, but we just need to be careful when we drill those holes to realize that the hole here is slightly higher up than the hole here. We now unfortunately need to drill a few holes in the footwell. Prior to us, somebody's obviously put new panels in the front there, and the holes or bolts or fittings that would have been there have long since gone. So we've taken the brackets off our gold parts car, and now we just need to attach them to the footwell. And whilst it pains me to drill holes, I'd much rather just panel bond this in. I think the way in which the ECU comes out, you're going to have to be able to unbolt this lower panel and then to drop it down. So we've marked some holes, we're just going to drill them now and then bolt that in. Now the reason we haven't been able to put this seat in yet is because in order to get access to all of this section here, it's far easier if you've got the seat out. So we've attached this top bracket here, and that bolts with two bolts, stainless steel bolts, nuts, etc., that go through to where the battery is mounted in the front of the car. We've drilled a small pilot hole here, but the drill is hitting something solid, which I suspect is that support bar. So I'm just going to step it up to a bigger drill bit to see if maybe we can just tap a hole into that solid steel and then just bolt the bracket in that way. Well, holy schmoly, we finally got that in there. That's the top bracket there with the two bolts, and here what we've done is we've actually tapped into the strut behind and just tapped threads in, so that's now secured in there, and that is not going anywhere. Whether or not this unit actually works, we've yet to test. But now that we've got the ECU bracket sorted, the next thing I'm going to do is try and reinstall the center console. Now it's worth pointing out that the center console on an earlier SL is different to the center console on a later SL. On a later SL, these sections here where the carpet sticks on are not integral to the actual central console. They click in and out. On an earlier SL, this one came from our parts car here, the central console is all one piece, which makes it very, very difficult to actually reinstall into the car. The first thing we've done to make our job easier is to take out all the mats that we made out, because as I say, the tolerances are very, very tight for slotting that central console in. In order to get this to sit flush, you've got to somehow move that over there without breaking everything, and that's why it's easier to take these mats out when you do it. It's much harder to take out the mat on this side because you've got that cable going over the mat, and on this particular car you've got that whole foot brake mechanism on top of this lower mat as well as the accelerator pedal. But I'm going to try and squeeze it in. There's also this bolt here which you tend to catch. What you've got to try and avoid doing is what I've just done. I assume that was the wire for the hazard light switch, but that's actually the wire for here. The hazard light switch I've managed not to pull through, so I have to take this out again and do that again. Once you've got all the wires routed correctly, the next thing to do is to take the car out of park if it's in an automatic and put it in neutral, because you won't be able to screw this gear stick in if you have the car in park and you attach the bolts that hold this unit. Once you've got the car in neutral, you can put this central plate on here and obviously plug it in. If you are sensible, unlike me, you will make sure that the ashtray plug is routed through that hole first before you put the central console in. Otherwise, you may well find it's jammed between the side here and the central tunnel, which is exactly what I've done. So I'm going to have to take this back out. I haven't quite finished doing all the electrics for all the various light bulbs and some of the vacuum pipes, but nonetheless I want to put this car back together so I can see what it looks like and give me some inspiration to carry on what has been a very long restoration. So this central panel goes in. Don't forget to plug the electrics in there. This panel clips in the top, and if you're lucky, these holes here and here will line up. After you've put these two screws in, you can then put these two screws in, and then the ashtray will plug in the side there, fit in like so, hopefully, and if everything lines up, which hopefully it does, the ashtray will actually open and close as well. I'm going to finish this video here. It's almost the end of 2023. I've got a flight booked to Australia, which I've got to go and catch now. I just wanted to remind myself of how gorgeous these cars look in the black and Zebrano. We've got most of the missing trim pieces at home, and when I get back from Australia, I'll just fit up the last bits of trim, just as I say, to give myself inspiration to carry on and finish this car. We've still got to do the fuel injectors and get this car running smoothly, and that will be my 2024 resolution. Meanwhile, thank you everyone who's watched the videos and subscribed, and a happy new year to you.